So I was just looking at hotel prices. So I picked a random day. I picked May 4th, Star Wars Day. Not peak season, but it's not off season either. Went on DisneyWorld.com to see how much a room cost. The cheapest I see, which it's variable, there's a bunch of, it changes anytime you go on there. It uses all the cookies and your location and all that nasty stuff. Showing me the cheapest room you can get right now on May 4th, All-Star Sports, the Ass Resort, for $155 a night. The only thing cheaper than that would be the campground, not a cabin, but just a campsite. You can get that for $112, and it's just land.
For $112, you can sleep in a tent.
Yeah, you can put up a tent or you can park a camper. So that's the low end. The high end, I'm not going to include the DVC specific because most of that inventory is actually taken up by the DVC suckers. Most expensive, one night at the Polynesian Village Resort, it's $803.
That really is like insane.
And that brings up my question. So that's a pretty big range to go from, we'll say 160 to over 800. What's the Dragon Ball thing?
It's over 9,000.
It's over 9,000! What, 9,000? There's no way that can be right.
So you have like Grand Floridian, it's $823 for that night. So it's a pretty big range. Then you have the moderates, and those are around $275 to $300 depending on the resort. So like the Caribbean Beach Resort is usually closer to $300 now because you have access to the Skyliner, so it's more desirable. Once you look at those prices, what are you really getting, and is it worth it? I really don't know if it is or not. I mean, I guess it depends on if you have kids. There's a lot of factors. I mean, what do you think? You've stayed at Disney hotels before, so
yeah, I've stayed at a couple of Disney hotels. I've stayed at some of the really nice ones, and I've stayed at the Value Resort, totally bottom of the line ones. And my honest opinion is that it is not worth it generally because if you're staying there, you're going to be spending like 0% of your time at your hotel room. If you're staying at a Disney resort, chances are you want to be spending the whole day at the theme park. So unless you have a whole day, like at least one whole day in your trip dedicated to just chilling at the resort, I don't think it's very worth it. Like the big perk used to always be, you're staying in the Disney bubble. So they pick you up from the airport in like a Disney bus. So you don't have to worry about like renting a car or scheduling a shuttle bus to get you from the airport to the resort. And then you have on-property transportation where like they have like a bus stop at every hotel and it'll take you to all the parks for free. Basically, once you get off your plane at Orlando International Airport, you like don't really have to worry about anything for the rest of your stay. And they've been slowly eroding away at that being the whole point. Basically, since COVID, they got rid of the bus transportation from the airport to your hotel. They've gotten rid of a lot of the perks or changed a lot of the perks that came with staying on site. It used to come with the ability to get in one of the parks earlier every day. Now that perk has been flattened a little bit.
Yeah, they have like charged events now where you can get in early, I think.
Well, they have charge events where you can stay in the park later. They called it early magic hours, and it would be like, okay, every day one of the park is open an hour earlier for people staying in a Disney hotel. So you can just get in Animal Kingdom at 6:00 instead of 7:00. Or Magic Kingdom at 8 instead of 9. And it's debatable how much of a perk that ever was because the pro tip was always avoid a park that has extra magic hours that day because they have like 50,000 people staying on site every day. So like whatever park has extra magic hours would just have like a giant boost of attendance. So like it was always smart to avoid that park anyway. But if you did care about that perk, they've now kind of flattened it where now just every park is open 30 minutes earlier for people staying at the hotels. And again, since so many people stay at the hotels, that perk is kind of non-existent.
I think like the one big perk now of staying at a Disney hotel is that they do still have the free buses to the parks. There was a survey that went out. They talked about this on the Disney Dish with Jim Hill. They talked about this a couple months ago. There was a survey that was basically gauging how guests would feel if they started charging a small fee to use the transportation, like let's just say $1 a day for each guest to take the buses, because it's such low-hanging fruit because they were able to successfully take FastPass from being something that was free for everyone to something that now adds millions of dollars in revenue each day. And they're just trying to see, how badly would the impact, if they were to start charging, would it really impact, like, people will stop coming to the hotels?
Oh, that's hilarious. They're trying to make it just be like an actual bus now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen, especially with tourism slightly down due to factors beyond their control. So I think that's the one big perk. The theming of the hotels, I think the exteriors are still pretty great, but a lot of their rooms have been redone to where they're all kind of the same. They're all kind of going for the, like, Marriott business hotel feel.
100%, I agree with that.
Their analytics, their surveys, their findings is that guests just want, I don't know, they don't want theming. They just want basic amenities. They want Wi-Fi. They want smart TV. They want iPad. They want hot chip. And then the other thing is that if they do that, it's easier to stock. Like if every hotel uses the same towels and uses the same soap. I think they used to have the individual soap bottles that the people would steal. And I think most of the hotels now just have it, like, filled in the wall.
Yeah, and I mean that's standard across the rest of the hotel industry, and part of Disney's excuse for
The
kind of
environment.
slowly making stuff. Well, yeah, they say it's for the environment, and business-wise, they say their excuse is, okay, well, our competitors are doing this, and it has no negative effect on their bottom line. Instead of having complimentary soap and shampoo, it's now a pump dispenser on the wall, even in the place where you're spending $800 a night to stay. Like little things like that add up, especially when you look at their competition. Like Universal actually like has like resort specific soaps and shampoos in your hotels. Like something we can get into later is I actually stayed at a Universal hotel for the first time, and it's like their cheapest one. I did that in June, and it was great. It felt better than it does staying at like the All Stars or whatever.
And this really annoys me at all hotels, where they want you to, like, not have your sheets changed every day, where they're like, oh, put the little card on your bed that you don't need your sheets changed. And it's like, I want my sheets changed every day. But my main complaint about the hotels now is because rooms have been redone with that very bland, not themed theming. I think the biggest offender is the Contemporary, where I guess they're more themed now because they're like Incredibles, which is like, for $800 a night, it shouldn't look like a daycare.
That is the biggest thing I think that takes away the value of these expensive hotels, is that they use like surveys where they broadly ask people, do you want your stay to be more Disney? And that people obviously say yes. So then they say, okay, so great. You want to live in a room that's like an advertisement for Disney Plus. They take rooms in places like the Polynesian or the Contemporary. They're supposed to be pretty classy and change the decor in the room to be on par with what would be in like the Art of Animation one, where it's like giant stickers of Simba and Nemo and stuff all over the room. The Contemporary is the worst offender, where you have a perfect opportunity there where since the park opened, it always like kind of had the decor of the room was basically kind of classy artwork of Walt Disney World in there. So like when they first opened in the 70s, it had like a big, again, kind of like 70s looking stylized map of the whole resort on the wall. And again, when it first opened, it wasn't like this is the high quality resort. It was there were 3 hotels there: the Campground, which is a hotel, the Poly, and the Contemporary. But as the resort grew, because these are the ones in the monorail line, they stayed at the top, like the most expensive ones at the resort. Now the decor in the room is, like you said, it's this like really cheap, incredible stuff. Like they leaned really hard into the Edna Mode character, and it's just so tacky and cheap looking. There's like in the closet, there's like a sticker on the wall of like the Incredibles uniforms on coat racks. People are paying like $800 to stay in there, and the Contemporary was originally conceived as their like business class hotel. And what's really baffling is in other parts of that hotel, they've kind of recognized that, because of the way the architecture of that building is, it's supposed to be 60s, 70s retro future idea of like a hotel. They really leaned into the monorail going through it, and it being this like kind of very like stark classic icon. So they have like a lot of artwork of the monorail and stuff in a redesigned lobby. But then you go to the rooms, and it's just it's characters from a Pixar movie. Everything in it just looks shitty and cheap. Like laughably bad looking. And they did similar thing within the Polynesian. They took what was just kind of a generally, Hawaiian Polynesian themed room. Now everything has like little subtle artwork of Moana everywhere in the room. And it's all Moana. The new building they built, the giant ugly DVC building, is even worse. They take something that was classy and turn it into an ad.
The last time I was at Disney World, I stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge, which is probably, well, I don't know if I'd say it's the best theme, but it's definitely one of the best. And it also happens to be the cheapest of the deluxe hotels because of its location, since it's only next to a half-day park, barely a half-day park, maybe a quarter-day park of Animal Kingdom. The hotel was very nice. The theming of the rooms, I'd say it was subtle. It definitely wasn't like the Marriott Best Western room, but it wasn't like over the top because like to me, Animal Kingdom Lodge room, I should go in there and it should be like a Rainforest Cafe. Like that's what I would personally want. I can see how that a lot of other adults might not want that, but it was very nice. I had some issues though. My toilet wouldn't flush. They sent a maintenance guy to work on it and they couldn't fix it. And they're like, well, just, don't use too much toilet paper or something.
Whoa, they wouldn't just change your room?
Well, and I complained, and so then they changed my room. They moved me to a different room. And then, well, I don't know if this is slimy. I mean, it was $450 a night. Later, when I got home, I called and complained. I'm like, I had like a maintenance guy in my room for 3 hours. You guys should have just changed my room. So they did give me a voucher for a free deluxe night at any deluxe hotel that I still haven't used yet. They should have just changed my room and then dealt with the toilet. And no, I hadn't gone in it, and that's not why it wasn't working.
I think the giraffes and elephants and all the zebras and stuff outside had gone in it, and that was your issue.
The view was very nice. The rooms that are guaranteed animal view are more expensive. I just had the standard room, but you still had views of animals. I guess it wasn't a full view because of the location. I wouldn't say it was partially blocked. You look out your window and you can see part of the hotel because of its location, like the building jutting out. I guess that's why it wouldn't be considered an animal view. But like I woke up and I could see the giraffes and the zebras.
And that is so cool. And that's like the kind of thing that does like put, like when they talk about the Disney difference, stuff like that. It's like, hey, yeah, we're going to make a resort with the whole open plan zoo in the whole courtyard of it. So you can wake up and see these wild animals. Like that is incredibly cool. Another big part of what makes us a deluxe resort is not just the room you're in, but the actual grounds of the resort. In the deluxe ones, at least especially in the Grand Floridian, the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and the Polynesian, just the grounds the resort are in general, they have a very giant, grand, great fancy feeling. You look at the giant lobby area, the great hall of that Animal Kingdom Lodge, and it has that giant A-frame above you, and African-inspired architecture is so cool. You look at like the lobby of the Polynesian. They made it smaller in the mid-2000s. They got rid of the giant waterfall and volcano in the middle of the lobby, but it still has, like the big tiki totem with the buoys, those glass buoys above you. Once you walk in there, there's like the ukulele music playing. It has like a great, really definite vibe. When you're walking in there, like, you're finally like, you got off the bus from the airport, you get in there carrying your bags, you feel like you're stepping into a very luxury experience. Same goes for the Grand Floridian, where they have, that very fancy Victorian style lobby. I think that is a little bit lost on the newer hotels that they're building, like the Disney Riviera Resort, which is supposed to be inspired by like the Italian Riviera. It generally just looks so generic inside. It all just looks like you've been saying, like a higher end Marriott.
It definitely looks nice. It just it's not like themed in the same way the other previous hotels were.
Yeah, exactly. Like it has just generic, almost like cheap feeling.
I wouldn't say it looks cheap. I just don't think it looks any more special than a nice hotel anywhere else, where something like Wilderness Lodge or Animal Kingdom Lodge is something that's really very exclusive to Disney.
Oh yeah, and the Wilderness Lodge too, that's another one where like their big like grand hall, like they have these giant fireplaces. It's a lot like the Grand Californian. They have this like, it's like this 5-story atrium with this giant fireplaces and big cozy chairs around them. It all looks and feels like it was made with real material. The Polynesian has carvings made by the guys from Oceanic Arts, who are like the guys who've done like tiki carvings for all the famous tiki bars that are still around. They have like just all like natural wood. Everything's like real. In the Grand Floridian, they have real marble inlays on the floors. And you look at pictures from this one in the Riviera Resort, it's all just, drywall and fiberglass and like light fixtures that you would see at any supposedly high-end hotel. They go with the lowest bidder for any of these. They get what they pay for, The ones that are older, just because they were built back when they had higher standards, they still have a lot more of that premium feeling that you don't see at the newer ones. And again, when we talk about if it's worth it or not, I wouldn't say that any of these are worth spending $800 a night at. You've got money to blow like that. It feels a lot more worth it if you're going to be spending actual time there versus if it's just a place where once you get back from the theme parks, you sleep and then like wake up and leave for the parks at 8 a.m. and come back from the parks at like 10 p.m. then like fall back asleep. So you may as well be staying at like a Days Inn or a, Motel 6 or whatever.
So my last Disney trip was almost 2 years ago, like a year and a half ago. I went to Tokyo Disney and Hong Kong Disneyland. So in Tokyo, I stayed at the Tokyo Disney Sea Miracosta, the Hotel Miracosta. That was like a 6-star hotel. It was amazing. That was cheaper than the Animal Kingdom Lodge, which was the cheapest of the deluxe resorts at Disney World. I will say that the exchange rate's great, so that, it might not be a totally fair comparison. The theming of the rooms was amazing. The elevators made noise. Like they'd have Disney characters saying which floor you were getting off of. And then I stayed at the Hong Kong Disneyland Hotel, which is very, very similar to the Grand Floridian. And again, that was a little more expensive, but I think that was still cheaper than Animal Kingdom Lodge. And that was also great, very well themed. I guess my main takeaway is the problem with the Disney World hotels. It's not really the hotels themselves, it's the price. And I know that said a lot about the park tickets, but the price of the hotels is so massively overinflated. The hotels simply can't match the price.
The price competes with the price that like real luxury hotels are. Like actual 5-star hotels around the world are. But you're paying for like the theme park version of that, basically.
The one comparison I would make, I don't know if it's the most expensive hotel in Orlando, but it's definitely up there, is the Four Seasons, which is technically on Disney World property. So I looked for May 4th, that same day. The cheapest hotel room there was $1,500 a night. So we're not there yet with like contemporary or Grand Floridian rooms, but I don't know if that's saying a lot because, again, for what used to be a resort for like middle-class families to go to, $800 a night is still, $800 a night might as well be like $20,000 a night.
I know that you had been on a Disney cruise recently. The thing I've generally heard about the difference between the Disney cruise and Walt Disney World today is that the way Disney justified their prices is, okay, look, you're going to pay a little more than you would at a normal vacation resort, but you pay a little more and we treat you like a VIP from the moment you step on property. Basically, with the post-COVID changes, they've realized, okay, we've set up 50 years of goodwill with this business strategy, with the quote-unquote Disney difference. We're going to cash in on that now. So we're going to take away all those little VIP feeling perks, but still charge the insane premium that we do because it's what people expect. And if in 20 years people don't want to stay here anymore because all they remember is coming here and their parents being stressed out about money the whole time, that's the future CEO's problem. But what I've heard about the Disney cruise is that is the place where Disney difference, that VIP feeling, is still very palpable. So how would you compare staying at the Disney hotel to the Disney cruise?
Yeah, so with the Disney cruise, this was a couple of years ago when I went. It was 2022. The service there was top notch. It's kind of what people used to describe what the cast members were like at Disney World, where they just went above and beyond for everything. There's kind of some economic factors there, though, because most cruise lines are employing people from much poorer countries. So Disney doesn't really have to pay them a lot because the US dollar goes a lot further. There's a whole nother discussion. The ship is not registered in America. It's registered, I think, in the Bahamas, which is like a whole tax thing. I think there's only one cruise ship that's registered in America, and it's because it's in Hawaii. The Disney cruise was definitely a lot more expensive than most other cruises. I don't know if I would say it's totally worth it more than the other cruises. I mean, this is the only cruise I've been on, but it was very nice. So I think the main takeaway is do better, Disney. Do better.
You mentioned a little bit about how like being on the Skyliner line raised the price of the lower value resorts a lot. So like Caribbean Beach Resort was a kind of like a middle of the ground moderate one, but now since it's on the Skyliner, it's really high value. And like we stayed at Caribbean Beach Resort when I was 10 or 11. I had an awesome pool with a Spanish fort over it. It's all very cool. Like all their resorts have great theming, but the price had like kind of doubled once they opened the Skyliner on it. You mentioned the All Stars, the other kind of equivalent resort there, the Pop Century ones, where they're themed to just different decades in American history. So there's like a 90s themed one with like a giant floppy disk statue. There's like a 60s and 70s one with like hippies and stuff. They're all like just generally like just as cheap feeling as the all-star sports resorts are, where you're like hotels next to a giant plastic football. Since they built this new transportation system, the cable car gondolas going right to the parks, what should be a like $100 a night resort is like $215 a night. And the Art of Animation one, which is like the same kind of thing, it's literally just a bunch of motel buildings with giant statues of Cars characters and the Nemo characters. It's a fine resort for families. They have like suite style rooms, which are a good deal if you're going there with a large family. But it's something that before they built the new transportation system, it was like maybe $200 a night. It's like $350 a night or something like that there now, which for staying in what is literally a motel is just so out of line. So like in these places where they're retroactively putting in these Disney difference style things, like their new version of the monorail, which is this giant cable car, instead of like saying, well, now we got this value baked into the price. Of course, they're not going to do that. No, it's now we can raise the prices by like 50%.
The thing about those transportation systems outside of the buses are pretty efficient at Disney. I think they guarantee like every 20 minutes, but I think sometimes you'll even be waiting less than that, like every 10 to 15 minutes. The benefit of the gondola or the monorail, especially the monorail, there's really not that much more of a value to it than just taking the bus, other than it's not something you would use every day. The monorails are kind of decrepit now. They need to be updated.
Right.
The gondolas...
You can insert footage here of the doors opening while people are riding it.
Yeah, the gondolas are neat, but if there's a lot of people waiting to get on, then you still might be waiting in line for a few minutes because it's backed up. And the buses are going to take you pretty much to the entrance of the parks anyways, so...
I generally don't love the buses.
I mean, it's a bus. It's fine. It's a bus.
I generally prefer renting a car just because you can... I don't like having to wait on somebody else on my vacations, so like I don't want to have to wait at the bus stop for a bus. I'll just get in the car and get going. But then Disney said, okay, well, not so fast. Now they started making you pay for parking.
Haven't they always charged for parking?
They have not. If it was the 2020 edition, it was like 2015 to 2020 edition is making you pay for parking. Even if your like way to get around the bus system was, okay, I'm just going to rent a car and I'm paying a little more because I got to pay for this car every day, but now I don't have to sit at a bus stop on my vacation. You have to pay $30, $50 a night to have your car in the parking lot of what is literally a motel. Like all the value resorts are just motels.
I just want to wrap this up with kind of a counterpoint to that. If you're renting a car and you say, oh, well, I don't want to wait at the bus stop. Well, if you're renting a car and driving from the hotel to the park, then you're parking and you're either walking a really long way, like 10 or 15 minute walk, or you're waiting for a tram. So I think that the difference of time savings is negligible. And then as for the free transportation they used to offer from the airport to the hotel, it was called Magical Express. Again, you would be waiting a little bit to get on it, and then you would be waiting for them to get to your hotel, because it wasn't just going from the airport to All-Star Sports. It was going to the airport and every hotel in which people on that bus were going to. Like, okay, so it's free, but you might be spending like an hour and a half now to get from the airport to the hotel, where especially like you can just take Uber and it's really not that expensive. It's maybe like $35. And especially if you're with multiple people, it's really not that expensive to just get your luggage and then get from the airport to Disney World in like 20 minutes. Time is money. Time is money.
That is a thing that I always just kind of felt like it bugged you. Like think especially with the Magical Express, yeah, where like you get on a bus, but then they have to stop at like, like every resort on the property before they get to yours.
This is going to be the last note, but it's a real pet peeve of mine, people who are really cheap about stuff like that on vacations. Because, like I said, time is money. Is it worth it to spend $20 extra so you can save an hour of your limited time of your 7-day vacation? Your time is limited. Your time in your life is limited. Spend $20 and get there fast. Don't spend your time waiting around. Like when I was in Japan, I read all this stuff about from getting to the airport to my hotel, and they were like, oh, do not, under no circumstances, do not ever take a taxi in Japan. It is so expensive. You can save the money and take the train. Well, guess what? I got off the airplane. I was jet lagged and I took a taxi and it was like $20. It was like $20. And yes, I could have only spent $5 and taken the train, but it would have taken 2 hours and I would have been on a busy train with all my luggage. So, like, value your time. And he's not going to hear this, but we have a mutual friend who I won't say his name, who went to Disney World a year ago. And he was insistent on taking Orlando's shitty public transportation to, like, do everything. Just wasting time standing around, twiddling his thumbs to get on a public bus. You know who I'm talking about, right? We won't say his name.
Yes, that also makes it sound way more sinister.
No,
yeah.
It's not sinister. It's just, it's stupid. It's asinine. So if he's listening to that, he knows who he is.